So in this 4-3 win against Wolves, Kobbie Mainoo was obviously the star of the show, but I do have to give credit to Erik ten Hag because I thought this was his best tactical performance of the season. I will go through all that in another video, whilst also looking at the few problems that United had, and I also thought Højlund and Dalot were excellent in this game as well, but Kobbie Mainoo showcased why he can be a complete central midfielder, being able to contribute in possession in the defensive middle, and in this game in the final third. But after I do analyse his match-winning goal, I am going to break down why I think he still has to play as a number 6, or at least as a deeper central midfielder, because of what he offers in the build-up phase, and I'll show it with examples from this game. But if you do want to hear my full match report, which was straight off the cuff after the game, you can sign up to my Patreon. It's about 10 minutes long, and I will be putting it straight on there for all the Manchester United games for the rest of the season, as well as doing some short podcasts on some non-Manchester United topics, some scout reports, and some unreleased videos as well. So check my Patreon linked in the description. But with Kobbie Mainoo in this game, it looks like we have one of the best squad, and if you're a nostalgia merchant like me, then go over to Jersey Thief. They've got all the Manchester United retro jerseys, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, through the 1990s and 2000s. You can use code Atlantis at checkout to get a discount. A link will be in my Instagram bio, which will be linked in the description below. So we can see here we're in stoppage time, and as a ball's going to come back to Kobbie Mainoo on the edge of Wolves' defensive third, not only are there a sufficient amount of Wolves players between the ball and the goal, but there are even a lot of players between the ball and the actual Wolves box, and so to get the ball into a shooting position from here seems pretty much impossible as the ball goes back to Mainoo. But also, as the ball is now in his possession, you can also see that because United at this point had thrown on Evans and Maguire in order to defend the 3-2 lead, Mainoo has the freedom now to push further forward, because even though he is playing as what is essentially the holding midfielder in the midfield 3, as United were now playing in a 5-3-2, Mainoo does have the defensive support behind him in Maguire and Evans, as well as Varane, Dalot and Shaw to enable him to push further forward. But as he receives the ball and goes past the first player, in this sort of position, if it's McTominay, even if it's someone like Mason Mount, you probably expect the easy pass going into Bruno Fernandes, and that's pretty much what Wolves want. I mean, it's not really a bad pass, but if you are a match-winning player, as Mainoo was in this game, the pass into Fernandes is probably not the one you want to play. But even maybe playing a pass into Forson, who's basically moved into the half space in behind the Wolves midfield line, is probably the pass you'd expect him to play in this situation. However, what he does here is absolutely magical. Feigns like he's going to go over to the left side and play the pass into Fernandes before nutmegging Kilman and fluidly just driving past him, and from this position I think Forson's run is incredibly underrated. Of course you have to give Mainoo all the plaudits, but this run is what really creates it. If Forson was to make a run closer to Dawson, then Lamina can just hold his position, and he's probably able to stop Mainoo on the edge of the box. But the run from Forson drags Lamina backwards and towards the touchline, but even in this position you'd probably expect Mainoo to slip Forson in behind Lamina, which if weighted perfectly and timed perfectly would have been a very good pass, but Forson would have been in a crossing position, not in a shooting position, and I think Mainoo recognises this, which is why he comes inside onto the right. The space has been created by Forson's run, and the finish is absolutely magical, curling it inch perfect into the far corner and winning the game for United. And to me, this goal was reminiscent of two players, Jude Bellingham, in particular his goal against Napoli, but also Paul Pogba as well. The goal Bellingham scored against Napoli wasn't exactly similar, but it did have shades of the one that Mainoo scored. We see here as Camavinga plays a pass into Bellingham, that like Mainoo, Bellingham is in an advanced position from the left side. He's positioned in behind Anguissa, but whereas Mainoo was in a more congested area and so needed quicker feet, Bellingham has a lot more space in front of him, and he uses his powerful ball carrying ability to not just keep ahead of Anguissa, but also completely drive past Lobotka. And he gets into the same sort of position on the edge of the box, but unlike Mainoo, Bellingham doesn't have a runner to drag the centre-back away, and so he has to use a bit of quick feet to get past Ostergaard, the centre-back, come inside onto his right foot. And whilst it is in a position slightly closer to goal than the one that Mainoo scored, like the Manchester United youngster, Bellingham's able to open up his body and slot the ball with a bit more elevation on it into the far corner. But the reason I'm bringing up this goal in particular is because this is exactly what you want from a modern footballer. The ability to bypass players in the middle third, not just moving the ball into the final third, but also getting it into the box and into these sort of shooting and goal creating positions, which both Bellingham and Mainoo did. And what really impressed me about both goals from Bellingham and Mainoo was their composure inside of the box. Even in these congested areas where they've got pressure from all sides coming from behind, the side, and also a player in front of them as well, they still kept their composure, and both finishes with the inside of their foot as they open up their body were top class. But I also think Mainoo's goal was very reminiscent of what we used to see from a young Paul Pogba. Now when Mainoo first broke out, I think he was being mischaracterised by a lot of people as essentially a next generation Paul Pogba, and he's a very different player to Pogba. And it's actually because Mainoo's a far more complete central midfielder than Pogba ever was. Pogba was always an advanced midfielder at number 8, someone who you want to be pushing up into that left-sided half space. And as we saw from Mainoo in this goal, Pogba had that quick feet, that technical ability, but most importantly, the sheer quality around and inside the box to win games in this manner. However, whilst Mainoo could certainly play this role, pushing up as an 8, sitting between the lines, however, because he's a far more complete player than Paul Pogba, I do want to see him in these deeper positions, because what he did in this scenario where he received the ball, moved the ball from just the edge of the Wolves defensive third into the box and into a shooting position, he can also do in deeper areas of the pitch, receiving the ball and driving it forward into the final third, which I think overall is going to have a bigger impact on the side, because he's not going to do this every single game, of course. But I think particularly when he plays alongside another holding midfielder, Casemiro or Amrabat, or my pick for a summer transfer would be Kamara from Aston Villa, when he is playing in a double pivot or a midfield three with a holding midfielder alongside him, he can be given the freedom to push further forward. And I think it is going to be interesting to see for the rest of the season when Casemiro is back, if he's able to bring more output in the final third like he did in this game through chance creation, but also through goals like this as well. And this goal really just showed how complete Kobbie Mainoo is. I still think his long-term future is going to be in that number 6 single pivot role, the same role that we see Rodri play, and he showcased just how good he is in that position when Casemiro came off and he was pushed slightly backwards, playing as the holding midfielder as a deep single pivot. His composure in possession just to turn out of pressure is definitely the best of all the United central midfielders, including the likes of Casemiro, even Mason Mount as well, and we can see that in this example. So here we see as Mainoo drops into the single pivot position about to receive the ball from Luke Shaw, that he's already checked over his shoulder, he can see he's got space in behind him, but rather than just receiving the ball and turning out and trying to race away from the pressing Pedro Neto as quickly as possible, what he's actually going to do is feint as though he's going to play the pass back to Luke Shaw, which makes Pedro Neto put all his weight onto his left side, anticipating that pass backwards and looking to press Shaw. And as he does this, Mainoo shows his composure and his fluidity in his movement by just dropping his shoulder, which wrong foots Pedro Neto before he swivels away, arcing back around away from the pressing Sarabia who's coming from the right side, and he's then able to glide into the space he previously identified with the quick scan over his shoulder and play the pass forward, breaking the lines of the Wolves midfield, taking their front three out of the game and moving the ball from the defensive third into the middle third. But he does it again in this move just a few seconds later. Dalot plays a pass into him and you can see Sarabia is now tight to his back, but once again he's able to just drop his shoulder, which wrong foots Sarabia, and now he can drive into the space in behind Wolves' frontline press, allowing United to play out of the defensive third and the pressure, and now he can move the ball onto Bruno Fernandes in his optimal position in the middle third, where Fernandes can now spray the pass out to the left side. And I think both of these, but particularly the first, is something that both Amrabat and Casemiro lack. Both are very rigid when they receive the ball, and both Amrabat and Casemiro do lack disguise in their movement, and that is a fundamental for playing that deep single pivot position. We see Rodri, but we've also seen Busquets throughout the last decade or so become masters at doing this, and this is what made Sergio Busquets so good. And whilst the technical ability is often there with young players, the thing they usually struggle with when they play in this deeper position is the awareness and the composure when under pressure. Mainoo has both. He can scan over his shoulder, identify the space, but he's also got the fluidity to just spin away from players. And this is massively going to aid United in linking the defensive line and the midfield line, with Mainoo being the link between the likes of Onana, Martinez and Varane, and Bruno Fernandes who sits ahead in that advanced midfield position. And so for me, this is the main reason why I don't consider Kobbie Mainoo a number 8 in the long term. Yes, he can play there, and he's so complete that he offers Ten Hag so much tactical versatility, as he can either drop into one of those deeper positions, but alternatively, he can also push up between the lines as well. And what I'd really like to see is him start in the defensive and middle third, but as the ball progresses into the final third, he can then be one of those players on occasions to break from that 3-2 rest defence, to pushing up between the lines as United move to more of a 3-6-1. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that video, check out some of my others linked in the description. Also check out my Patreon if you do want to hear my match report from the game. And remember to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you do get notified when my videos come out.